Okay, everyone. So my chapter was on natural disasters, and specifically they focused on Hurricane Katrina. So what happened, I'm sure you all know about Hurricane Katrina, but it hit New Orleans, made landfall there on August 29th, 2005, and as you all know, caused incredible amounts of destruction and wreaked havoc on the city. And it was basically underwater, or it was underwater. I read 80% of the city is below sea level, so you can imagine, and I'm sure you've all seen the videos and everything from that time. But one of the biggest problems that made the aftermath of this even worse than what it would have been, which I mean to a certain extent, there's always things you can't help. It's nature, but they really didn't have a a plan for this, like an evacuation plan, a crisis plan, or anything, because they kind of assumed what had never happened before was never going to happen, and that really caused a lot of problems for them after this hurricane came through and left the city in shambles. And like I mentioned, they just assumed it could never happen, and sadly they had to learn that lesson, and it just is heartbreaking, when you see the videos and all of the things that happened because of that. But the governor of Louisiana at the time, her name was Kathleen Blanco, and she wrote a letter to President George W. Bush via FEMA, sent it via them, to the White House about what was happening and what the plan was, or lack, well, not really a plan, but what they were going to do. And, they just didn't expect it really to be that bad until it hit land. Like, they really weren't fully prepared they didn't even know that it was going to be as bad as it was. And on the same day, their mayor set up a command center at the hotel, or the Hyatt Hotel in New Orleans. But he didn't have any staff left in town, really. There was a few people left that worked for him, but really everyone left, and they really hadn't thought about being able to communicate. And all of pretty much every single phone in New Orleans wasn't working. All the power lines were down. The only people that had a phone was the military, and they even had problems getting a signal. And the mayor even mentioned that he barely had communication with the White House at the time because he couldn't get a phone signal. And, that's obviously never good. On something on this magnitude happens, you need to be able to get your resources, and you have to be able to talk to the White House. So that was a huge problem for them. And eventually all the levees broke in the New Orleans area and just completely just destroyed the city. And the mayor eventually did lose his patience. You can read his quote below and, fill in the blank for yourself, or go read it if you want to. But he just felt like the president and the governor didn't do everything that they could have done to help him. And, whether that's whose fault that is, everyone has their own opinions. I'm sure you all know a lot about all of the things that happened at the time, or maybe have read about it since. But that's his perspective, and that's what he said. So what could have been done differently? Quite a few things. The biggest thing that they mentioned in the book that they would have changed was having bullhorns and satellite phones, which I think is kind of odd to me when I read that they didn't already have that in a town like New Orleans, where they have so much weather, like hurricanes like this, and they're kind of used to it to a certain extent. I was quite surprised that they did not already have something like that in place. And they also mentioned wanting a generator at one of their local offices so that they could, I don't know why they wanted a copy machine, but that was mentioned, a copy machine. And like I mentioned before, some type of alert system for these types of storms, which really struck me as odd, because even like Taboon has those horns that go off. Well, they test them all the time. I've never actually heard them go for a real emergency, but I just found that odd. But that was really what they wish they would have done differently. Two of the huge things that stood out, because once Katrina hit land, like they didn't know it was that bad until it hit. So at that point, it's too late. You can't call. All the lines had gone down. So really, bullhorns or something like that would have been the only way to communicate, like, hey, this is a lot worse than we even expected or could have told you from the radar. So that is what I got out of that chapter, and thank you for watching.